the Minnesota Wild announced they will be buying out Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. Both their alternate captains signed matching 13-year contracts on the 4th of July, 2012. And with about 4 years to go on those contracts, they are no longer members of the Minnesota Wild, both players well into their 30s, clearing out a ton of cap space for this upcoming season. But the cap gets a little bit dicier as you go along on those contracts. But Tyler, I'll start with you. This clears up Minnesota's defensive situation for the expansion draft, and gives those guys a chance to chase a cup. Otherwise, this is kind of a non-move.
Yeah, I think this does a lot of things. I mean, one, you named it with the expansion draft. They're now, I believe, going to be able to protect Matt Dumba, which is something that they wanted to do. This gives them a ton of more cap this year, at least. There was, rumors that Kaprizov turned down an 8x9 contract. I don't know if that was true, but if he did, I mean, that's pretty incredible that he would turn that down. So they were obviously going to need more money if they wanted to sign him and Fiala. I think they now have close to 25, 26 million in cap space this offseason. So they should definitely be able to get those two guys signed. And I think this also vaults them right back into the Jack Eichel conversation. I mean, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, how they really didn't have the space if they wanted to sign Kaprizov and Fiala, but now they do have this space, at least for this season, where if they wanted to go make a Jack Eichel move, there is now potentially an alleyway for that to happen. And then as far as, Parise and Suter, obviously two amazing players for the Wild, probably Wild Hall of Famers. And I think, obviously not at the peak of their careers that they once were. They're not the same players, but I think a lot of teams will want these guys. They'd be good middle six, solid depth defenseman players, and they have a ton of experience, which is something that teams are always looking for.
The Wild's going to be paying for the not majority, I'll say all of their salary for the next some odd years. Also, they're paying each $6.7 million over the next 8 years. And then year after that, 2.3, 6.3, and 7.3 million hits for the next 4 years after that. So that's crazy that they just bought out both contracts at the same time. I was thinking maybe buy out Parise's contract and let Suter ride for another year, or vice versa. But hey, the Wild clearly have something in plan that they want to do. They have two players, like you just said, Tyler, to resign, so they'll have plenty of leeway to do that. And they're not done playing hockey. They're going to be able to go to a team and hopefully perform like the two players that they are known to be. And I'm excited to see where they're going to go. And it was a long time ago that these contracts were signed on the same day. And it's so weird to me that they buy them both out at the same day, same time. And it's just like back to square one now.
That was a sticker shock kind of price when that came out 9 years ago. I oddly enough remember where I was when I saw that news. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of money in a lot of years. And I guess we were right, and I was only 12. But you mentioned the Jack Eichel conversation, Tyler. I still don't think it puts him back in it because, yes, they saved $10.3 million this year, which is just about what Jack Eichel makes. It makes 10 even. But next year it only saves them $2.3 million. Then in 23 and 24, 24 and 25, excuse me, it saves them only $300,000, and then they're paying $1.7 million more than they would for 25-26 through 28-29. It frees up cap space this year, but it does not free up cap space for long enough to warrant a Jack Eichel trade unless you are dead set on losing Kirill Kaprizov. And at that case, why are you trading for Jack Eichel? Recoup as many assets as you can and rebuild with Marco Rossi. I don't necessarily still don't see a way they could fit Eichel just because of the future cap implications, but it doesn't make a ton of sense because it doesn't do enough to get Eichel. It doesn't do enough to pay Kaprizov that much more than what he allegedly turned down. And at the end of the day, maybe I'd rather just have Zach Parise on my team for the next 4 years than have to pay $2 million in 2028, 2029 when nobody here is going to be on the team anymore. And I don't know. I understand why they did it, but it doesn't provide enough of a cap help in the future to make it worth it in my eyes.
Yeah, I understand that. I feel like if there was, I mean, they just did add so much cap space in this one move today. I feel like they have to have something planned. Maybe it's not Eichel, but I think there has to be something else coming because even if they were to, if they were to make an Eichel trade, they'd have to lose like a Dumba or someone, a high caliber defenseman like that, who by buying out Suter, you just gave yourself the ability to not protect them in the expansion draft. So these moves are kind of all playing upon each other. I understand that. I feel like if you have the chance to fit Jack Eichel on your books this year, which I think they could, they would find a way to make it work in the following years. But it's going to be close. I mean, they're not really. They still have Zuccarello for 3 more years. That's $6 million. We talked about the Eriksson Ek contract last episode. I mean, that was a pretty hefty price, 5.2. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Wild do, whether it's a Jack Eichel move or not. I don't know, but I think there's definitely going to be a lot of moving parts coming out of Minnesota this summer.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's going to be an Eichel trade. They just got too much going on right now, and in order to get an Eichel, they'll have to give players away that want to play with Eichel and Eichel needs in order to succeed. So I don't think it's going to be Eichel, but they got something coming. They're not doing this for their own good or for nothing. That they want to get players to win and win soon. So they're going to get somebody and somebody important to the team.
And there's still some contracts that are not fantastic on this team. Like Jared Spurgeon's a good player. He's their captain. I understand wanting to pay him, but he's getting paid $7.5 million into his deep 30s, just like the two guys they just bought out. And Jonas Brodin, again, a fine player, getting paid $6 million into his deep 30s. The cap sheet for this team is head scratcher. And yeah, Jack Eichel would make it look a lot better, and a nice long Kirill Kaprizov extension will make it look a lot better. But it'll be very interesting. And I think that if Eichel goes, right, if Eichel goes to Minnesota, as you mentioned, Tyler, Dumba's going to have to go. And Marco Rossi might have to go too, their number one pick from last year. And are you willing to give up those two important players for a guy who we're not terribly confident you can afford at this moment if you're going to try to re-sign Kaprizov? So it will be very, very interesting to see what they do. But as for the Parise and Suter route, they're both going to go to contenders. I don't think that that's really a doubt. There's no reason for them not to unless they're going to retire. But I think there is still a little bit of gas left in the tank for both of them. Parise to the Islanders is the easy connection between Lou Lamoriello, Andy Green, Kyle Palmieri. If those guys end up coming back, all three of those guys are free agents. Green, Palmieri, and Zajac. But that 2012 Devils reunion continues on Long Island, and Zach Parise's dad played for the Islanders as well. So that feels like an easy one. Although I'm not terribly I'm not so high on bringing in a guy, and he wouldn't be getting paid a lot, of course. But I'm not terribly confident in that. But the one that I'm interested in is Ryan Suter to Colorado, which I've seen a little bit of, because they're probably going to lose Ryan Graves in expansion. That's kind of the prediction, because they're only able to protect Makar, Girard, and Taze. So they'll lose a guy like Ryan Graves, and maybe adding a Ryan Suter who's been around the block to that defensive core would be interesting. But Mike, what are your kind of predictions for these two as they look to both get their first Stanley Cup championship?
Yeah, I really didn't think about the Islanders for some reason at first. I guess I didn't put the connection from playing in New Jersey together, but that would be honestly a good landing spot. Do I want it to happen? No. No, I don't at all. That would kind of stink, but I could see that happening. I mean, they have all the pieces already that they need, and he could really just be, I'm not going to say that last piece of the puzzle for the Islanders, because I don't think he can be that, but someone who can significantly help them out, has chemistry with the team already or with some players in the team, and can, in my opinion, do nothing but help the Islanders win and succeed further. But I'm trying to think what an other team he would go to. But after you said the Islanders, I'm kind of stuck on them right now, and I like that connection. I like what they have, and I really like what he would be able to provide for them as well.
Yeah, I think both these guys would be great signings. I mean, the main hit against them in the last few years was that they're overpaid, which was true, but now that is no longer an issue. So I think Parise, but especially with Suter. I think someone could put Suter in their top 4 as a second pairing guy, and he would absolutely fit in. I mean, he's a pretty well-rounded defenseman. The knock on him, he doesn't like affect the stat sheet as much, but he just goes out there and you know what you're getting from him every night. So I like the Colorado. I saw maybe the Flyers because we don't know what they're doing with their defense, but I think a lot of teams can look at these two guys and think, okay, if we can bring one of them in, that could get us to that next level, whether it be becoming a playoff team or maybe jumping from like a mid-level playoff team to a contender. So I think there's definitely not going to be a shortage of suitors for either of them.
Suitors, nice pun.